Hi, it's Bill for the Kawartha Insider.
And Doug with the Kawartha Insider.
We just attended the last meeting of 2022 at Council. We thought, with all the information that we had provided every one of the councillors, the staff, key people, okay, that they would have maybe took the time just to review what the Clean Water Act says by the province. All the things, the study that was done on the storm drains dumping into the water.
There's also water and wastewater debt. So, and it approximates about $45 million, I believe. And that is paid off by water and wastewater users only. It's not a tax levy. It doesn't affect the tax levy. It affects the user rate that the water and wastewater residents pay. So it's not shared equally among every resident in the city. As well, we forgave penalty and interest on taxes and utility bills in that time. So yeah, services were, I don't know if they were.
But Doug, what do you think?
They ignored the whole thing.
It was like sitting in a movie theater and we were watching the Stooges.
I think we're being paged. Come on.
They definitely have their own agenda.
Oh, by far. I mean, I'm shocked. And this was all about getting the people that look after the water systems within the city to get them so that they can become accredited and licensed and continue on providing that, we don't know, unsafe. We're gonna go stretch it way out there this time. That unsafe water, because nobody asked them, are you sure it's safe? Have you done the tests? Can you prove to us that that water does not contain any harmful chemicals, toxins? It was brought up the fact, Mr. Perry did, that they issued a boil water issue up in Fenelon, but he didn't ask why have you issued a boil water alert.
He also said something to the effect that there has been legislation from the Ontario government saying that 200 parts per million, and he came out with the facts that there was 2 million parts per million, and they still okayed it.
Oh yes, they were just thrilled. They were thrilled to give back authority, unblanketed, with no credible documentation to prove that these people are actually have the concerns of the people that are drinking the water every day.
So what you were stating, Doug, was the provincial guidelines for E. coli is maximum 200 parts per 100 milligrams of water, but the tests that have been submitted to them in one of the locations at the north end of Lindsay.
I just have a question with the high water and mandatory service connection. During my campaign, I do have some people that are not hooked up to city water or septics, and they still get a water bill, and they still get mandatory for septic also. So I guess my question is could you educate me why people are getting bills when they don't use the water and use the septic?
We'll go to the expert. Director Robinson, would you like to answer that?
Sure, I'll do that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So the mandatory connection is a process that started, well, many municipalities have implemented years ago. It's really a requirement for where municipal servicing is available for residents to connect to that service. We've gone through many different iterations and processes within our group. Council could have opted to simply just require people to connect. There's costs associated with connection, private side services, public side service connections, etc. Our council opted ultimately through many different iterations to not require immediate connection to services, but to recognize that the services are there to the benefit of the landowners. They're available for fire protection, it's there available, it's increasing property values, etc., etc. So the ultimate resolution within mandatory connection for water systems and wastewater systems is to not require them to connect it immediately, but at the time of failure of their existing septic bed or their well, they'll be required to connect. But in the meantime, to recognize the benefits incurred to the landowner, there is a $50 fee, I think per service, per bill. I believe that's the current fee right now. But that is the general reason, is that, again, through many iterations and discussions with council, ultimately the decision was to not require immediate connection, but to require the fee, recognizing that infrastructure is there to their benefit.
Thank you. So the fee is that they aren't paying for water, it's just a fee that is available for them when they need to hook up, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So in essence, again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, in essence, we're providing, we have infrastructure in the ground in the place in front of their business, so there is a cost associated with like long-term operational maintenance and replacement of that. So their contribution towards that infrastructure is that nominal fee that was settled upon by council.
Okay, thank you. And just another one on that one. There's also a committee for an appeal. And it looks like, are we asking for that committee to be dissolved?
I'll answer that. Yes, we are. There was a high water bill and there were some changes made. Ms. Liotti could probably expand on that. But basically what will happen is if there is an appeal now, they will come directly to council.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to move the recommendation?
Sorry, yes, I'd like to move the recommendation.
Oh, sorry, I got some other people who want to weigh in on this, apparently. Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor McDonald. I was initially really wanted to question the same thing. Why were residents who are not hooked up being forced to pay for a water bill? But you said a key word here. That's fire protection. So these are working fire hydrants in front of their homes is part of the infrastructure.
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, not all systems are fire rated, but the municipal drinking water systems, Fenland, Bobcaygeon, Lindsay, are all rated for fire protection. So again, it's a recognized overall benefit of having that infrastructure available. And again, council could have opted in accordance with the legislation to require them to connect immediately. There would have been significant costs and implications to those residents to convert their systems. So again, the concession that council made was to defer the connection to the time when their private infrastructure fails, to the point where they need to either install a new septic bed. So instead of installing a new septic bed, they'll connect to the wastewater system. Yep. Instead of installing a new well, they'll connect to the water system.
No, I understand that. It's just residents who are not connected, as you can imagine, are not happy paying for a water bill. They don't consume water, or they have a septic bed. They don't use the sewage. But that's why just the fire protection is interesting. That gives them value for what they're paying. So if there's working fire hydrants in front of their homes, that changes the dynamic. Thank you.
Councillor Ashmore.
I think you were first. Yeah, just what Councillor McDonald was saying. It's not just, and he brought a point about Lindsay, of course, but in Omemee, there's instances on Walnut Street, just as an example. So it's all over. It's in Oakwood, it's in Lindsay, it's in Omemee. Just as examples, I think there's hundreds of people who are being charged for a service that they're not using, and they may use it down the road, but they shouldn't be penalized because it's right in front of their place. You know, if I don't want gas in front of my place, if I don't want to utilize natural gas, if I want to burn oil, I should have that right. And but nothing against gas, but I'm just saying this is similar. You have a infrastructure that's set up, but people are getting really whacked, especially in Omemee, because they're putting it on their taxes, and it's really starting to add up, fees, and you know, it's pretty frustrating. But I think it's just the forced action that we impose on people. They should have the choice, and that's just sort of where I stand. I was on the committee. It was a good committee, but everything does come to council at the end of the day anyway, so I can certainly support that. But I still feel that, we've got some issues here with this, and it's not going to go away. So I can assure you, this is not going to go away, and people are persistent. So we should really get this rectified sooner than later.
If you're not hooked up to hydro and it runs in front of your property, you're going to get a bill. So there are other examples where people pay for a service and don't get that service. We at least are providing a service in terms of fire suppression and availability for when they may need to hook up. So, anyway, Councillor Smeaton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a question. If I was living on the south side of Highway 36 when it was ops, not Lindsay, where you couldn't have been connected because the connection's across the street, were they protected from fires through the fire department?
Well, they always will be, yes.
Were they then though, without having any service hookup, they were still, like the fire service still would have been fine if they had a fire, they would have had water coming to them, right?
Right, that's why we have $500,000 pumper trucks.
Exactly. So I can certainly see why somebody living in that house now who still has a well and every possible way of their waste being treated on their own, when they hear that their bill will be a $200 a year fire hydrant bill, whereas somebody else has a $200 a year bill for water, they're instant, and there's many constituents of Ward 5 who have come to me and said, Eric, I'm sorry, but I need you to really see it for what it is. It's as cut as dried as I do not receive this service and I pay $200 a year for it. And when I bring up the fire hydrant, and I did, when I bring up that issue, they say, I'm not so sure that that's exactly right. So I just would like some further explanation. Is it true that some people are paying $30 every 3 months to have access for a fire hydrant because they're very happy to not access the water that's across the street, by the way, not running in front of their property like hydro? And they say to me, yeah, I understand your argument, and this one's mine. There are 82-year-olds who pay into the education system. They pay taxes. Their benefit for that is significant. We raise a culture, we raise a society through school systems where people learn how to achieve and have self-discipline and get jobs and get employment. They don't argue that fee because they understand that they are reaping a benefit from that even though they don't go to school. And I just for the record have to say that I've been listening to a lot of Ward 5 constituents. They find this extremely frustrating, and I've done the research I could do, and I agree with them. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Warren.
No, Fenelon, sorry. Yes, Fenelon Falls.
Was 2 million.
2 million parts.
Per 100 milligrams.
Yes.
So the difference between 200 and 2 million is
substantial.
Is not a little sweet.
No, so what they did was they issued a boil water warning. Not to drink the water unless you boil it. But I guess it's all right to bathe in and get it in your mouth. Some of the kids do when they have their bath.
Is it?
I guess so.
I doubt it.
Right? Well, in their opinion, it's safe because they issued that boil water warning, right? And it's just so frustrating.
This council meeting, also with 135 households and businesses in the city of Kawartha Lakes are being charged for a service that's not rendered.
Yep.
One thing to always keep in mind when it comes to water and wastewater services is that they're completely user fee funded, meaning that the taxpayer does not pay for water wastewater services in the city. Only the actual users of the systems pay for water wastewater services. And because the city continues to have a uniform user rate structure across the city, what that means is that the larger, more efficient systems like Lindsay end up subsidizing the other systems. And if you look at our water wastewater rate study, which comes out every 5 years by law, that study actually quantifies what that subsidy is across all the systems.
They have just dropped the committee so that there is no readjustment on that.
Well, no, now they said...
I'm asking the public to come forward,
yeah,
okay, with this video and submit your names to the Ontario, or to the Kawartha Insider. Please stipulate that you are being charged for services not rendered, and we'll act on your behalf.
The other issue is too, they were very bold about it. They're going to increase taxes 4.5%.
Just a couple from me, Carolyn. A 3% increase is a 3% increase to the budget and does not necessarily show itself as a 3% tax increase. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Yeah, because you have so many factors that go in to your taxes that you have on your residential property, including, as I said, area rating. There's also the assessment value is key to your tax amounts paid. For example, $1 million home would pay more taxes than a $500,000 home, that sort of thing.
Now, the reason for that is that based on previous council direction, Kegawan Road is to be a cost-shared upgrade in terms of paving the road between the city and the local residents, and it was conditional on the local residents paying their half of the cost to the city by last Friday. And I can confirm that I've heard from our Treasury Division that in fact we did receive that check for $220,000. This is the way out of the problem that we're in. As she mentioned, it is structured so that it is funded by 1.5% tax increases over the next 10 years, so that at the end of the 10-year period, we will have enough coming in to support the asset management reserve so that we don't have to go out for debt for any replacement, any rehabilitation, or at least we don't have to plan for it. Maybe there'll be an unplanned event that occurs, but we will no longer have to plan to use debt for those purposes.
And that's on residential. Then there'll be another increase if you're commercial, businesses, and industrial on top of that. The other issue is they just passed to increase all fees, burial fees, every fee that the city charges, upwards to 9%. But what they did was they picked the ones that were low, so they averaged it out at 3%. But for a burial that was only $435, it went to over $900.
It's more than doubled.
Doubled what the city now is going to charge you to when your loved one has died.
The next extraction is 1014, proposed amendment to bylaw 2018-234, consolidated fees bylaw. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions here. I'm not sure who I should, as Linda's here, or, oh, there she is. There we go. Okay. Some of these fees that are proposed to be increased, like they're fees that are acceptable given, you know, the inflationary times. But when I look at some of the amounts here, like fees for taxi licenses up 70%, fire inspection fee for building 90%, and it's a big chart here, but I do remember reading patio license fees are going up 298%. Is this going to go over well? I don't know. I haven't had a lot of people have much backlash on it, but I just think it seems quite high. I know things never stay the same, but what was the rationale to increase it such amount? And those, just as those examples, just wanting to know what the reasonings were, if I could.
Ms. Liotti.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. So in total, just I guess for an educational purpose, as many of the new councillors haven't seen this piece of legislation before, but the consolidated fees is really a cost recovery mechanism. And so I collaborate with each department and business unit, and they provide their respective costs, whether they be a hard cost, i.e. if it's a particular fee or service that we have an outside contractor, plus supplemented by internal administrative costs. So as an example, the taxi license fare rates. So the tariff cards went from $3 to a $10 cost. And again, it was cited by the business unit that it's really to recover additional staff effort. So there could be some different policies or an administrative time that's involved in issuing that particular tariff card. I know you also referenced the patios. The patio charge actually was waived during COVID, so for 2020 and 2021, and it's just cycling back on. So that's why you're seeing such a large increase on that particular line item.
Thanks for that. I see the rationale, but you use the word recover. I'll give you an example. The patios, the restaurants, I mean, they're still recovering, and, you know, to bring this back for this year, maybe in another year or so, but this has been I'm not singling out one particular industry, but it certainly is an example that, you know, we really shouldn't be, you know, imposing this increase back onto these businesses so fast. That's just my comment. I'm not sure. I'll see how the discussion goes.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have some concerns. I just wrote down a few going through it. It's quite a long list, but the deeming bylaw went from 416 to 832. That's a big increase. Also, liquor licenses went up, and also we don't have a cat bylaw, I didn't think yet. So should it be in there? That was a question. Internment's gone up too, quite a bit. So those are my questions. Thank you.
It's just some of the fees that are related to teaching swimming and lifeguarding. Others are, as Councillor Warren mentioned, burial fees. And these are real increases that affect real people, especially for ceremonies and services at time of death for people's loved ones. It's not affordable for a lot of people.
My question was to you, Mr. Mayor, like, is there any way to have a proposed motion to defer until the operating budget time? Because I think we've only seen this for less than a week. The agenda came out Wednesday, so we've only seen it for 6 days to digest all this here. I think, you know, to be fair to the folks out there, and to us as well, and to staff, that we take a bit more time and look at these numbers. I'm proposing that.
So it's not 9%, it's over 100%.
It's 50%.
Yes, it's 50%.
Another 50, 100% increase.
And the other thing we learned is that they've got tenders out there for doing projects.
Of purchasing them, and, you know, and the expensive method of purchasing, where you have to, you know, you have depreciation and all that, and whether that's an option, and I was assured that they'd be looking at that in the future. Also, like, I'm sure Blue Mountain Chrysler is a great company, but, you know, it would be nice if we could weigh more, we could try and, I don't know how this criteria is for local vendors, but it sure would be nice if we could get some local vendors that could win these contracts, whether Chrysler or Ford, GM, any other manufacturer around here, domestic, foreign. They have a lot of jobs here in this area. And, you know, there should be some weighted advantage to being local, but I'll leave it at that.
It does fly in the face of our purchasing policy and laws, so I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm with Councillor Ashmore. We talk about shop local, and this flies in the face of it, and I'm concerned about public pushback on this. And we got a lot of dealerships in town. I guess, can we not go back to them and ask them to put a better bid together?
A quick feedback as well, but effectively what you're asking for is against legislation. There's laws that prohibit bonusing local suppliers through tendering processes. All of our tendering processes are open public tenders. We notify all the local potential vendors that the tenders are out and available for them to bid on. It's really up to them if they want to bid on it. This particular case, we received one bid, although all the local suppliers were aware. So we go through an open, fair public tendering process, and this is ultimately the company that was successful through that process. So we can't cater and direct work towards local vendors.
So basically, we are under legislation. We are under the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. And the Free Trade Agreement does not allow us to do local when it's over a certain threshold. The threshold for goods is $25,000. So we wouldn't be able to buy one vehicle for $25,000 at this point, not very often. So the way it stands is we have to put it out publicly, and we even go as far as babysitting our local vendors. We send them addendums, we call them, we do everything we can to get them to bid.
That Blue Mountain Chrysler Limited be awarded HSR FQ 2022-26-CQ, supply and delivery of various pickup trucks and SUVs, multi-year.
And in the real world, that's a signed contract. Now what they did, they just approved millions of dollars to give to the contractor that won the tender that's going to cost now us, the taxpayers, more money.
Double and triple.
Double, 50% increase in the original cost of what the project was supposed to be on completion. And these people don't even bat an eye. It's like, let's get her done. Who cares? It's only taxpayers' money. We don't really care, right? It's Santa Claus time.
It's Christmas.
It's Christmas, yeah. Right?
Somewhat reluctant to throw in a CAT licensing demand and fee. I don't know if anybody else shares that. I'm just concerned, has there been any public surveys done on this?
So the feral cat and trap, neuter, and release management program that we're and when you talk about licensing, we're only talking about domestic cats. So the feral cat and when you talk about licensing, we're only talking about domestic cats. Been to council many times since 2005. This iteration of it did receive a public survey. We just finished that survey, I believe, about 3 weeks ago. And the responses were quite high. And so part of this is it's a 2-year pilot project. And so the survey results will be released to council kind of mid-year in 2023 in conjunction with just an update where we are with the program.
And feral cats is not spaying and neutering, and they get away.
And when you talk about licensing, we're only talking about domestic cats.
I'm just wondering if you've considered, if your cat has been fixed, no charge to license. And if it's not, it's a $150 fee to encourage more neutering, more spaying. Somewhat reluctant to throw in a cat licensing demand and fee.
And when you talk about licensing, we're only talking about domestic cats. Feral cats aren't part of that licensing project.
I understand that, but it's domestic cats are also part of the problem.
So the belief structure that councillors operate in our behest and do the best to provide for the citizens and the taxpayers is proven to be just out the window, and it's now just going to the bank and rate it and rake it.
Exactly. And not only that, it's just what we said. Staff run City Hall again. They run it. They run it 100% because the councillors all go, staff.
Is that when we have a new subdivision that comes in, the question I always hear, do we have enough water and waste to supply, many, many developers coming into town? How do we know that we have enough to let subdivisions being built today?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe Director Rojas will answer that question.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the city undertakes several studies to determine the capacity of the system. So in the past, we've done a master servicing plan. I think it was in 2011. We've also done a capacity study of all our various systems. We are currently undertaking this year both a capacity and master servicing plan to facilitate the needs of growth and infill development. In addition to that, our operations department does an annual report of both the water and wastewater system. So the amount of usage that we get compared to the rated capacity of the pumps. So we do keep track of it. There's also a calculation for uncommitted reserve capacity. It's a desktop exercise that gives us a feel for how much residual capacity is in the system. But the servicing models, so the water, wastewater models that we're implementing now is sort of the best tool to guide us on how much capacity is left for each subdivision. So with any new development approval, subdivision or site plan, we do look at the system and determine whether there's enough to service that particular development.
And if there isn't, what do you do?
Thank you. Through the mayor. So if there isn't, a couple strategies. We can put a hold on it and let our capital program catch up. We could enter into a front-ending agreement that says, okay, the developer pays for the upgrades and then we reimburse them at a later date. Or we can accelerate our capital program to catch up. So it's typically one of those three strategies that we would implement.
What should we do? Make us a recommendation. And, oh, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so how many years does it take to construct a cell?
No, to fill it and complete it.
Oh, okay, yes, so that depends on the fill rate. And at current rates, it will, this cell that is proposed for next year will likely take about 4 to 5 years to be filled.
Michael, so if we're at 40% at the end of June, what would you say your percentage is right now? Because I know that November was amazing for you to catch up on some roads. So I'm just wondering what percentage we did end up at the end of the year with. Thanks.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So not having the financial book in front of me or the database, I'm going to guess we're easily at 85 to 90% complete. I know a lot of our rural research, and we were working right until the first or second week of November, shouldering. There was a few members of council that also reached out to me, and I believe we got, I'm going to say easily over 90% complete this year. There's very little carryover till next year.
You know, it's not the fact that they want to increase their salaries again. They feel that they're underpaid compared to other municipalities, eh, Doug?
Yeah.
The staff are going, oh my, if we want qualified people, we're going to have to pay them
pay more
what
money.
Toronto pays, what Pickering pays in wages.
You still believe in where we're from.
Municipalities where the standard of living is much higher, the average wage is much higher, and yet we in Kawartha Lakes now are going to enjoy the next 4 years with I guess we'd call them the 8 Stooges, and we got Sleepy Doug that couldn't follow what he was doing as the mayor. I mean, it's Christmas time, Doug.
It's Christmas.
About face. Forward, march.
It's Christmas time for Bill from the Kawartha Insiders.
And Doug from the Kawartha Insiders.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Many of you may have heard it from local developers as you dealt with them about long wait times, about not being able to get answers, things like that. And this is a way of addressing that issue of the backlog we have in both planning and building.